I'll be explaining about Marie Curie's work segments. Obviously, it will not include everything she and her husband did during their lifetime, but I'll try to explain the most important parts. It began with Henry Becquerel, who discovered uranic rays. It was quite accidental how he discovered uranic rays. Inside his drawer, he had kept photographic plates along with uranium. After some time, when he opened the drawer to take the photographic plate, he found out that it darkened. But he could not understand what was the reason for this darkening. But then he found out that only uranium was there along with the photo inside the drawer. So definitely something coming out of the uranium is responsible for this. But he could not explain why, because this infinite amount of energy coming out of uranium, this could not be explained. Because this violated the first law of thermodynamics, which is the Carnot principle or the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it can only be transferred from one form to another. So it was a puzzling question where this infinite amount of energy was coming from. Marie Curie and her husband was quite interested in this. And so they started investigating about the rays coming out of uranium. Actually, it was Marie Curie who began, which was later supported by her husband Pierre Curie. So this is a picture of the experiment done by Henry Becquerel. This is how the uranium darkens the photographic plate. And you can see he has written some notes about it. So it was an experiment that he did. Now, before explaining what Marie Curie and Pierre Curie did, let me explain what radioactivity is. In simple terms, radioactivity is the decay of a bulky nucleus. That is, an unstable nuclei will give off protons and neutrons. This is radioactivity. Now, why is it unstable? The reason why it is unstable is because of two forces that act in the nucleus. One is Coulomb's law and Coulomb's force, and the second one is strong nuclear force. While Coulomb's force between the protons will be repulsive, the strong force between the protons will be attractive. So when the number of protons with respect to the number of neutrons increase, then what happens is the nucleus become very unstable because of the strong force or the dominating strong force, and thus it will decay or it will disintegrate. And how does that happen? By giving off some kind of rays, which we will discuss further. So this process is called radioactivity. During radioactivity, high energy rays are also given out. This is gamma rays. These rays are gamma rays. Now this is a picture of radioactivity explained. You can see it's a heavy unstable element, example uranium-238. Spontaneously it will decay into another element because after decaying its atomic number will change. When its atomic number changes, definitely the element is no longer the former one. So you can see an alpha ray is given out and along with that gamma rays. Now this alpha ray will contain neutron, proton as well as beta, that is an electron. Okay, and it is because of these alpha rays that the darkening of the photographic plate was observed. One way to know the presence of radioactivity is using uranium plates, but this does not allow us to measure the amount of uranic rays coming out of uranium nor any other kind of quantitative study. So Pierre Curie set up an apparatus. That is apparatus you are seeing on the screen. So there you can see two electrodes between which an electric field is applied by the source. Okay. So this is the source you can see. So by the source, electric field is applied between the electrodes. Now you can also see on one of the electrodes B, a powder of the material which is to be tested is loaded. Now uranic rays produce electric charges in the air, and thus an ionization current will flow between the electrodes. Now to nullify this charge, okay, it's compensated by applying a required weight to a leaf of piezoelectric quartz. That is what you see over here. Okay, so what happens is when you apply weight over there, some charges escape out of this quartz, and the amount of time required and the amount of weight applied is calculated. That is, when you apply an amount of pressure on the quartz, some charges will come out of it, and those charges will be opposite to the charges produced between the electrodes. And in this way, when all the charges in the electrode is nullified, we can understand the amount of electric charges or the ionization current produced, and this is measured by the quadrant electrometer. This is the quadrant electrometer. That is the amount of compensation charges coming out of the quartz by applying a weight. Okay, so this was the apparatus set up by Pierre Curie. This was the first experiment on this apparatus was done by Marie Curie, and she measured the activity of pitch blende, which was thrice as active as uranium. It was believed that the pitch blende contained some kind of radioactive element, and that was the reason why it was thrice more active than uranium. Okay, and so she also recorded the compensation time, and in this way she was able to understand that there is some unknown element present in the pitch blende which was not discovered till then. So she started doing more experiments in order to find out what was the element in the pitch blende. So this is one of the pictures of one of the pages of a notebook. You can see she has written 580 and all. Yeah, you can see she has written not so certain over here. So that is about the report, like the feeble activity of cesium. That's what she wrote over here. And the one over here, which is a kind of thorium oxide, okay, this one is pure thorium oxide, and that did show some activity, and that she has written over here. Okay, and you can see pitch blende, the weight 500 gram of pitch blende. Okay, she has written it over there, and time also she recorded 24.7 seconds. So this is a markings what she wrote in a notebook. Okay. So Marie Curie also found out another mysterious activity. The thing is, what she wrote in a notebook, not all of those were published, and some parts of a published work was not found in the notebook too. So this is one mysterious part that she observed but she did not publish in her work. That was the activity of thorium oxide. That is, its activity decreased when a stream of air was flown through the ionization chamber, but within a few minutes the activity increased, then it decreased. So that activity which she could not explain properly was found in a notebook, and maybe that was a reason that she could not explain it properly. that she did not publish it. So I had mentioned it multiple times what ionization current is. So in case you don't know what ionization current is, it is an electric current produced in an ionized gas which is subjected to an electric field, which was found in the apparatus, right? The ionized gas was subjected to the electric field between the electrodes. Now this is the chemistry part. Now the subject has totally changed from physics to chemistry. This is how they separated the radioactive elements from pitchblende. Okay, so you can see, to pitchblende they treated pitchblende with an acid. Okay, it was nitric acid. Okay, they treated it with nitric acid. When they treated it with nitric acid, they got a solution and a residue. Okay, now what they observed was both the solution as well as the residue, okay, was radioactive, which meant either two different radioactive elements were present or the same radioactive substance was distributed among the two. Now to the solution, she evaporated the solution to get the residue A. She got a residue A, which she wrote uranium azotate plus X. That X was the one she needed to find. Okay. Then in the residue, she fused it, okay, in an alkaline solution using acid. So she got a solution. Now the solution was treated with hydrogen sulfide, H2S, and she got solution and sulfides. Now the solution contained uranium and barium, and the sulfides contained copper, lead and all. Okay, so now she had to treat the solution in order to get, and now she knew that the solution and the sulfide did not contain any other radioactive element other than uranium. So she had to treat the residue. Okay, now she also knew that the sulfide, even though the solution she knew that it contained some kind of radioactive element, but the sulfide, when she tried treating it, okay, in order to find whether any kind of radioactive element is in case present in it. Okay, so she treated it in ammonium sulfide. Okay, and she got a solution which contained astatine and Sb. Okay, and she got a residue which contained lead, copper, and you can see it contained X, bismuth and X. Okay, then she treated it again with nitrous acid, and she got a solution, and the solution was again treated with sulfuric acid, and she got precipitate and a solution. Okay, and the precipitate contained PbSO4, lead sulfate and X, and the solution also contained copper, bismuth and X. So what she needed to do was she needed to find out X. So she washed it with dilute sulfuric acid and she got a solution with only the X part, and in the other the NH3 ammonia, and she got a solution and a precipitate. Solution contained copper and the precipitate contained X, and that is what she needed to find out. Okay, in fact she found out because in the solution and in the precipitate she got X, and bismuth was the carrier of X over there. And this was a breakthrough because they found out a completely new element and they named it polonium. So I'll just read out what she wrote in her notebook. I believe that the substance we recovered from pitchblende contains an unknown metal similar to bismuth in its analytical properties. If the existence of this new metal is confirmed, we propose that it be named polonium in honor of the native land of one of us. So this is a picture of polonium. So this is another part of a notebook. You can see the first time she used polonium. It's the first time she used polonium. You can see she wrote P over there. They found a new metal, new material element. Now their job was to find out another radioactive element, because they knew it contained, the pitchblende contained one more element, and that was it. They could not understand what the radioactive element was. So they thought of doing a series of experiments in order to find out the new element. And if bismuth was the carrier of polonium, here barium was the carrier of the new radioactive substance. So you can see this radioactive substance was fractional distilled from barium chloride. They knew natural barium is not radioactive, and so it contains no radioactive substance. So it was not barium which was radioactive, it was some other element which they have not discovered yet, which is radioactive. And eventually they discovered radium, and they named it radium. And you can see they named it first. You can see she wrote an approximate value over here, 142.8. She wrote approximate atomic mass. She wrote over there. So that was the first time radium appeared in their notebook. Now I'll just explain the three types of radioactivity: alpha decay, beta decay, and gamma decay. Actually, gamma is a ray, so you might think why it's called decay. I'll explain. So first is alpha decay. This picture is more than enough to explain what alpha decay is. Alpha decay is considered this parent atom to be very heavy, and so as I said before, same reason as I said before, it will become very unstable and will decay into a daughter element. Here X will change to Y, you can see. And helium is the alpha particle. So you can see A-4 and Z-, its atomic mass as well as its atomic number will change. That is why -4 and -2 is written over there, because the alpha particles mass and atomic number has to be subtracted, and that is what has been done over there. Atomic mass 4 has been subtracted and atomic number 2 has been subtracted. So uranium will change into thorium. That is one example of how one element gets converted to some other element during radioactive decay. Second is beta decay, and that is because this is alpha particle, it's called alpha decay. Hope you understand. Next is beta decay. In beta decay are of two types: beta minus decay and beta plus decay. So in beta minus decay, for example here carbon 14, there are 6 protons and 8 neutrons. So neutron will split into a proton and an electron, and that is why you get 7 protons for nitrogen 14. It will change into nitrogen 14, and the neutrons is 7. One will split into a proton and an electron with the production of antineutrino. So you can see an electron and an antineutrino is produced in beta minus decay because it's anti, and an electron is also produced. That's why it's beta minus. In beta plus decay, carbon 10, for example, will change into boron 10. How is that taking place? Here, proton will change into, or will decay, or will split into a neutron and a positron. Then only proton will be positive. It cannot give off some other particle whose algebraic sum would not give its own charge. So a proton plus a neutron which has no charge. You can see 4 neutron will change into 5 neutron, and 6 proton will change to 5 protons, along with a neutrino is produced. Antineutrino is the antiparticle of neutrino, and positron is the antiparticle of electron. It has all other properties same as electron except its charge, which is positive. And last, we'll come to the end of this video. Gamma rays. So during nuclei decay or radioactivity, what happens is the nucleus gets excited, just like in photoelectric effect, or like there are cases when electrons jump from one state to another state. So they get excited, just like electrons. Nucleus will also have their own excited state and normal state. So during radioactivity or radioactive decay, nucleus will excite to a higher level and then come back to its lower level. During this process, gamma rays with very high frequency, gamma rays are very high frequency and thus they have very high energy too, is given out. And usually gamma rays are given out during alpha as well as beta decay. So gamma ray alone does not come out, it's usually with the other decays. I hope you enjoyed my video. Do check out my other videos for more informative stuff. Much of the information was taken out from an article by J.P. Edloff, The Laboratory Notebooks of Pierre and Marie Curie and the Discovery of Polonium and Radium, and from various other websites from Google as well as other textbooks. So hope you enjoyed, hope you understood the basics of radioactivity and the contribution of Marie Curie and her husband towards chemistry as well as physics. In case you're not aware of it, Marie Curie is the only human who got Nobel Prize in 2 different fields, physics as well as chemistry. I hope you saw the transition between their study in physics to their study in chemistry. With this, we come to the end of the video. Hope you all enjoyed. Bye. Stay tuned.